You're listening to The Jacob Valk Show. He's breaking down the latest and greatest in sports as only he can. Follow him on Twitter at RealJacobValk. Here he is, Jacob Valk.
Hello, sports fans. Welcome to another edition of the Jacob Valk Show. I am Jacob Valk, and there's a lot of coronavirus type news that pertains to sports that I have to talk about. And I'll start with the NFL saying that there will be no supplemental draft and no 4-game preseason. We're either going to get 2 games or no games. I'll start with the supplemental draft. That's really a nothing burger. Very rarely do those guys have productive careers. Yes, Josh Gordon. Yes, Steve Walsh. I understand that, but more often than not, it's schmageggies who are decent players, but nothing special. I mean, there was talk that this supplemental draft would allow 2021 prospects in it because there may not be a college football season. Now, that didn't come to pass, obviously, but if it did, this would be the most star-studded supplemental draft in history. Could you imagine guys like Trevor Lawrence and Justin Fields in the supplemental draft? Holy God. The New England Patriots and Jacksonville Jaguars would be doing backflips. But it's really not a big deal. I can't get too crazy excited about it. The preseason is a little more interesting because if those games are canceled outright, which is something that the NFLPA is pushing, according to Mike Garofalo of NFL.com, that means that these players are not going to have game action until the regular season. That is bizarre that they would want that. So you're going to go straight from training camp to the regular season to not get your body acclimated for actual games and physical contact? Ooh, man. You're going to have a lot of injuries. Look, I understand that a shortened preseason means that there's a longer training camp. So it's not like you're going from training camp ending in July or early August, taking a month off, and then playing regular season games. No, training camp is going to go until the end of August, and then regular season games, according to what the players want. But that's not going to be enough to get them back into game shape. I understand that this is football players' off seasons anyway, so they're not at risk as much of getting out of game shape. I mean, they're not playing anyway right now, so their bodies are used to it. But to go from training camp to meaningful games, that's tough. I mean, the purpose of preseason games is to ease your body back into football mode. I'm not saying football shape. football mode when you're used to getting hit and running as fast as you can and doing all the things you need to do on the football field. You can't do that in training camp. Training camp helps, but it's not a full-on substitute. I'm all for a shortened preseason. Have 2 games. I have no problem with that at all. The preseason goes too long anyway. I mean, think about how you have a 4-game preseason schedule shake out. You have the starters in for a drive, then a quarter, then a half, and then not at all. You cut the preseason in half, and it becomes probably a quarter and then a half. I don't mind that at all. And another big part of the preseason is giving the guys at the end of the roster a chance to show what they can do and make the team. There are countless examples of players being afterthoughts all throughout training camp. But then when the preseason hits, they play really well, they show that they belong, and they make the opening day roster. Kyle Phillips, perfect example. No one knew who this guy was. He makes the Jets because of his great play in the preseason, and you know what? He had a really good year last year for the Jets. By getting rid of the preseason, you're basically saying to these guys at the end of the 90-man rosters, you have no chance of making this team. Because even if they ball out in training camp, we didn't see you play games against NFL talent. So we're going to go with this veteran backup over you. That's exactly what's going to happen. No, you cannot eliminate the preseason. You can shorten it. Shorten it to 2 games or 3 games. 3 would be the absolute max. I agree that 4 is way too much. But if you want to cut it in half, I don't mind that. I gotta say, I kind of like how Roger Goodell is navigating the coronavirus pandemic. He did a good job of surging through the NFL offseason to give sports fans something for a little bit. The NFL draft went off pretty well. Of course, there were a couple hiccups, but that's to be expected. And now he may cut down the preseason games. Something that's been long overdue. Great. Fantastic. Good job, Roger Goodell. I understand that he had it easier than guys like Manfred, Bettman, and Silver because his regular season wasn't affected by this. So it's a little easier to navigate, but still, this isn't easy. There were people looking to postpone the NFL offseason. Have free agency start in July, have the draft in July, or whatever it was. Instead, Goodell pushed through, and you know what? Nothing bad happened. Great job, Commissioner. I give you credit. Moving on now to MLB news. And don't worry, we're still getting a season. We're still getting 60 games. Don't worry about that. But in an interview that Rob Manfred did with Dan Patrick, Manfred said that we're not going to get an expanded postseason. Now, that's something that was never official. It was discussed that there would be an expanded postseason, but nothing was official one way or the other. Manfred officially shut the door on it with Patrick. This is going to upset some people. You know, you're already cutting the season by 102 games. So give fans more baseball. has been some people's mindset, and give the players more baseball so that way they can get some more money from postseason bonuses and stuff like that. But I like the fact that there's not going to be an expanded postseason. This season already has enough of an asterisk on it. Alright? We're shortening the season by over 100 games. Extra inning games are going to start with a runner on second base. Yeah, let's have the whole league in the playoffs. Let's have a 30-team tournament. It's a joke. And that's actually what some people want. Some people want every team in a league, not just baseball, every team in any league to make the playoffs and then have a crazy tournament. No! Absolutely not. You have to make the regular season mean something. You have to make it mean something more than just seeding. That's a joke. You want to tell me, oh, Jacob, you said you might as well increase the asterisk? So why are you against increasing it a little bit more for expanded postseason play? You still need to have the postseason have some kind of legitimacy. If the best teams in Major League Baseball, and we all know who they are, alright? Teams like the Yankees, and the Braves, and the Dodgers, and teams like that, if they all make the playoffs, then great. Fantastic. We didn't get any undeserving teams. If there are some surprise teams in there, like maybe the Blue Jays or the Mets, okay, you can live with that. That happens every year. But when you start seeing more and more surprise teams like the Reds and the Rockies and the Tigers and the Royals, the Orioles, the Red Sox, no, it doesn't work. And don't think that can't happen with expanded playoffs. Again, 60-game season. All it takes is for you to get hot. 10-game winning streak, that's it. You're in. 10-game losing streak, that's it. You're out. If you expand the barrier to get in even more than it already is with the 2 wildcard teams, which I've gotten used to, you're going to water down the postseason. You still need to have the postseason mean something. You can't have undeserving teams in the playoffs. It does not work. I really like the fact that there isn't going to be expanded playoffs. It helps restore some legitimacy to this season. Not much. This season is still going to have a huge asterisk on it. There isn't an asterisk for hockey. There isn't an asterisk for basketball, depending on who wins. If a team like the Florida Panthers, or I'll go over to basketball, the Sacramento Kings, go on a crazy run, that's a huge asterisk. That can't work. But if a team like the Boston Bruins or the LA Lakers win the championship, okay. No asterisk. It all depends on who wins. Moving on now to the NHL, and it seems like we know where the hub cities are going to be. This is not official. Bob McKenzie had this initially. It was corroborated by Michael Russo of The Athletic, McKenzie of TSN. Again, nothing's official. This is still a very fluid situation. The two hub cities are going to be Toronto and Edmonton. So no hockey in the U.S. Two Canadian teams. It was rumored that it was going to be Las Vegas. I don't know why that didn't happen. That was a rumor that was from a few weeks ago. But it seems to have died down. I don't know how Nevada's doing with coronavirus cases. I don't know how Canada's doing with coronavirus cases. They're obviously doing better than America, which isn't a high bar to clear. We get a little bit of freedom here in this country, and that's it. Off to the races. To hell with social distancing. To hell with face masks. Let's just do whatever we want. I saw the most sickening report today on Twitter. Students at the University of Alabama were having coronavirus parties. The first one to get sick would win the pot. And there was gambling involved, and I think you had to pay like an entry fee or something. Whatever it was. I mean, that is the single stupidest thing I've ever heard of in my life. How did those people get into college? What is the acceptance barrier for the University of Alabama that those people are allowed into college? All the students involved in that should be expelled. Because it's clear they shouldn't have been in college in the first place. Last time I checked, you have to be smart to get into a college. How on God's green earth are those people allowed into a university? An institution of higher learning? Yeah, we've done a lousy job controlling the coronavirus here. And the consequence is no hockey. Now, I understand it really doesn't matter. It's not like there were going to be fans in the stands, and you were going to get a lot of hotel revenue, but you would get some hotel revenue. I'm sure the NHL is paying for the rooms that these teams are staying in. I mean, I would assume that they're cordoning off hotels or floors of hotels. And I'm sure those hotels are being compensated for it. Plus, the arena workers would get paid. You add a little extra money to the local economy, and that gets spent. The U.S. isn't getting that because we are idiots when it comes to this. Alright? Make no mistake about it. Compared to the rest of the world, we have mangled this. Yesterday, there were over 50,000 positive coronavirus cases in this country. The first time that has ever happened here. It's July. We've been dealing with this since March. Now, I understand that we don't know how sick those people are. Are they asymptomatic? Do they just have a slight fever? Do they have a little bit of a cough? Are they a little nauseous? Or are they on respirators? I understand that it really doesn't differentiate. But when you have 50,000 positive cases of this thing in one day, of course the NHL is going to say, no, we're not comfortable playing here. Of course they're going to go to Canada. And yeah, there are going to be exceptions made for the players to become essential workers, and they'll be able to cross the border. That's not hard to do at all, to designate them as essential. I've heard some people say, well, you can't have them in Canada because, the border's closed. It's closed to non-essential travel. You can still cross it if you're essential. That's how these players are going to get across. They're going to be designated as essential workers. And one other thing, Toronto is going to be the hub city for the Eastern Conference teams, and Edmonton is going to be the hub city for the Western Conference teams. It was discussed that Vegas would be the hub city for the Eastern Conference teams, so there would be no home ice advantage. but there wouldn't be any home ice advantage anyway. Even if the Vegas Golden Knights were playing there, there are no fans. How can you have home ice advantage when there's no fans? Toronto is a fantastic hockey city, but if there are no fans watching them play at the Air Canada Centre, there's no home ice advantage. When I first heard that, I thought that was so stupid, and I'm glad that Toronto's going to be for the East and Edmonton's going to be for the West. Now, I'm not expecting this to be some major turning point in our fight against the coronavirus. There are not going to be hundreds of millions of people saying, "Oh my God, we missed out on hockey. We need to start taking this thing seriously again." I'm not expecting that, but we really need a shifting in tone from our leaders at the state and federal level. Just come up with a unified message of what is best, and people need to follow it. It's just that simple. Don't be an idiot. Don't think you're above this. Don't think that just because you're otherwise healthy, you can't get this. Kevin Durant got it. Spencer Dinwiddie got it. Austin Matthews got it. You know what? They're all in better shape than you. Alright, so don't be stupid. If you're going to go outside, wear a face mask, follow social distancing protocols, get your act together, and don't act like a nincompoop. In the immortal words of a New York Jets security video. Speaking of the Jets, according to The Athletic's Connor Hughes, they are still talking with Demaryius Thomas about coming back. I've been pretty gung-ho on the Jets adding defense. I think they've done enough to support Sam Darnold. This is his year. He has enough of a system around him to succeed. If he can't, he's a bust. I've been very consistent in saying that. But that doesn't preclude bringing Thomas back. Thomas was a guy who I wanted back before the offseason started. Before we had ever heard of the coronavirus. He was a locker room leader, brought a much needed veteran presence into a volatile Jets locker room, and he played well. 36 catches for 433 yards. Now, I understand that's not what he did in Denver, but that's 12 yards per catch. That's pretty consistent with what he's done since 2015. He's not the dynamic wide receiver that he once was. He's never going to make another Pro Bowl. He's not going to catch double-digit touchdowns again. He only had one last year. Alright, I get that, but he'd add a much-needed veteran presence again to a still volatile Jets locker room. It's probably more volatile now than it was last year because Jamal Adams made a trade request. He'd also fit in seamlessly on the wide receiver depth chart. Perryman, Mims, Crowder, and Thomas looks a lot better than Perryman, Mims, Crowder, and Vincent Smith. Smith played well last year for the Jets, but Demaryius Thomas is much better. I'd love to have Thomas back. Joe Douglas, I give you permission to address the offense one more time to bring this guy back. But then, focus on defense, get the Jamal Adams trade done, and if that doesn't address your defense, go out and sign some free agents. Actually, it's kind of funny, the big piece of the Jamal Adams trade to the Cowboys anyway was going to be a wide receiver, either Michael Gallup or CeeDee Lamb. Probably Gallup. The Jets would still go after Gallup in an Adams trade. Thomas is not a replacement for Gallup. Alright, like I said, he's not the Thomas of old. Think about this depth chart for a minute. Gallup, Mims, Crowder, Perryman, and Thomas. That's really, really good. And I'm not 100% sold on Perryman anyway. So, I have no problem knocking him down the depth chart. Yes, he would fall from 1 to 4. The Jets are going to give Denzel Mims every opportunity to succeed this year. Even if he has a bad training camp, even if he has a bad preseason, he's going to get a lot of run as a primary target for Sam Darnold. They want that connection to work for the next 15 years. And Jamison Crowder was the Jets' best receiver last year. He led them in receiving yards and touchdowns. I'm not knocking him down the depth chart. It has to be Perryman, a guy who only had half a season last year. His first half, he was terrible. His second half, he was great. That's a guy I'll knock down the depth chart. Gallup, Mims, Crowder, Perryman, Thomas. I like the sound of that, and Sam Darnold should too. Alright, so I'm going to end the show here. The reason being, I want to give you a show tomorrow, and if I do the trifecta now, there will be no show tomorrow. I really love doing this show. Yes, it's a lot of work, but I like doing it. It's fun work. It really is. So, tomorrow, assuming there's no huge sports news, you'll get the trifecta. That'll be it for recapping every team's draft class. So that means next week, you're going to get 2 new semi-recurring segments. You'll get This Day in Sports History. You'll get Mount Rushmores. Yes, I'm still going to do Mount Rushmores. I don't think we should get rid of that. That's ridiculous. I'm not talking about my segment. I'm talking about the monument itself. I really want to go there, actually. It's on my bucket list. It was on my bucket list long before any of this happened. In addition to those, you're going to get 2 new segments. I will leave you in suspense as to what they are. The only thing I'll say is, you should probably keep an eye on my Twitter, because it has something to do with a picture that I'm going to post on Twitter. I don't know when I'm going to post it. Either Sunday night or Monday morning. That's still up in the air to me. Until tomorrow, I am Jacob Valk saying that baseball reveals character, but golf exposes it.